Space, the final frontier. This is the Observer's Notebook, the official podcast of the Association of Lunar and Planetary Observers. Its mission to explore the solar system, to seek out new observations and data, to boldly go where no podcast has gone before. And now the host of the Observer's Notebook, Tim Robertson.
Hi, everyone, and welcome to the Observer's Notebook, the official podcast of the Association of Lunar and Planetary Observers. Each episode, we share the latest discoveries, observing techniques, and stories from the people who explore the moon, planets, comets, and beyond. Whether you're looking through your backyard telescope or leading professional research, we're all united under one sky. I'm Tim Robertson, your host, and thanks for being here. Now, if you usually listen to the podcast in your car or on your phone, did you know you can now watch it too? That's right. The Observer's Notebook is now available on YouTube, our very own ALPO YouTube. So head on over there. And here's something interesting. Over 70% of you watching or listening are not subscribed. It's free. Take a quick second, hit that subscribe button, and ring that bell so you never miss another episode. The show is made possible from support from you, our viewers. If you like what the Observer's Notebook is doing, you can join us on Patreon. Just go to www.patreon.com/observersnotebook. And for $1 a month, you're supporting the show. For $5, you get early access to each new episode. For $10, you receive a copy of the Novice Observer's Handbook. And for $35, you'll be listed as a producer on the podcast. And of course, to learn more about the ALPO, you can visit www.alpo-astronomy.org and join for as little as $22 a year. And now let's get started with episode 235 of the Observer's Notebook podcast. Enjoy. All right, I'd like to welcome everybody back to this edition of the Observer's Notebook podcast. And today's episode's a little different. We're going to step back and talk about where the ALP is right now, and more importantly, where we're headed. Over the past year, we've been getting into the community a lot more than ever, through the events like the American Astronomical Society meeting in Phoenix, the NEAF conference back in New York. We're building relationships across the astronomy world, including conversation with sky telescopes and other publications. What we're seeing is exciting. More visibility, more engagement, and growing awareness of what the ALPO brings to the table. So joining me today is someone who's been thinking a lot about that lately. ALPO Marketing Communications Director Ron May. Ron and I are going to talk about building the ALPO, its voice, how we're growing our presence, and why the real strength in the organization has always been and continues to be the people behind it. Welcome to the podcast, Ron.
Thank you very much, Tim. It's great to be with you.
Now, this is your first time on the podcast, so why don't you just give our viewers a little bit of background about yourself?
Sure. Let me start in two areas. First of all, in terms of my interest in astronomy, I think that my love for astronomy started the way a lot of people's did, and that is that when I was about 8 or 9 years old, my dad handed me a pair of binoculars and said, "Go outside and look at the moon." And I did. And to this day, I can remember looking through an old pair of binoculars at the moon and seeing the craters on the moon with my own eyes and thinking that this was just the greatest thing ever. And that really gave me the introduction to a real lifelong love of astronomy. So using that and capturing that, along with a career in corporate marketing, really allowed me to get involved with the ALPO, being able to not only utilize what amateur level love I have for astronomy, but also my corporate background, which was in marketing and communications for well over 40 years.
Yeah, and being the executive director now myself, we did not have anybody in your role really before this. So when we're going to talk about where the ALPO is headed, that's just a logical step to bring someone in with your experience.
Mm-hmm. Well, it was very interesting. I knew Julius Benton back in the 1980s when I was working in corporate. I purchased my first Questar. And Julius was there, and we started talking about ALPO and started talking about telescopes, and our paths crossed over the years. But in 2020, I got reacquainted with Julius, and I found out that you had an opening on your endowment board of trustees. So that kind of leveraged more of my background because in the early 2000s, I was a member of the board of trustees of the San Jose Museum of Art. So I thought, this is very interesting. It will allow me to get back into astronomy. It will allow me to help an organization that has been around for a very long time. It'll allow me to get reconnected with a friend of mine who I knew 40 years ago and was anxious to get reacquainted with. And understanding nonprofits and how they operate and what they need to move
Hmm.
forward was, I think, very interesting for me. So in 2020, I was elected to the Endowment Board of Trustees and became a member and became an ongoing member of ALPO as well at that time.
Okay. So the ALPO, we've always been an inward organization, you know,
Mm-hmm.
and
Mm-hmm.
we're now trying to push ourselves out into the world. What does it mean for the ALPO to have a voice out there in the world?
Well, I think it's very interesting, first of all, for people to understand, and I know a lot of people that are going to be listening to your podcast aren't necessarily that familiar with the ALPO. The ALPO is not like a local astronomy club. We don't do pancake breakfasts. We don't do swap meets. We don't really even host local star parties.
Mm.
But what we do is serve as a very unique link between amateur and professional astronomers. We often say that ALPO takes off where Sky and Telescope leaves.
Hmm.
But more than that, we not only teach people how to become better observers of the night sky, we teach them how they can do something with that advanced knowledge that they develop through their membership in the ALPO. And I think that's really critical. The ALPO has for 75 years been compiling and managing this incredible database of information that really can only come from the hundreds of amateurs that put in the time. We
Hmm.
hear so much about how professional astronomers not having the time to look at one thing or another. And reflecting back on Julius as executive director when I was there, he has observed Saturn for over 60 years.
True.
And that kind of knowledge base doesn't exist at an institutional level. It really exists with people who are members of organizations like ALPO. So we have now put together a database of well over 75 years of astronomical observations that can help the professional organizations that come in, such as you and I have talked about, working on the Cassini mission and
Right.
others.
That's true. That's true. Now, as for outreach and getting ourselves out there, the only Alpo events I'd gone to in the past were our own internal conferences. Years ago,
Mm-hmm.
they were held at
Mm-hmm.
universities and things like that. Lately, they're all virtual. So
Mm-hmm.
this year in January, you and I attended the American Astronomical Society
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
meeting in Phoenix. That was the first time we had been in a group like that.
Yeah, and it brings me back to the old metaphor in marketing and advertising, which is when you're winking at a pretty girl in a dark room, you're the only one who knows what you're doing. And if you want to tell people what you're doing, you got to let them know. And I think the Alpo is entering really a new renaissance phase in its existence. I think the idea of going out to these shows, I think the 247th meeting of the AAS in Phoenix in January was a great case in point.
Hmm.
The majority of attendees were either students or academics or professionals, so they weren't necessarily our key target audience,
Very true.
but it taught us a lot about what to do and it taught us a lot about our messaging and it allowed us to leverage our presence there in a number of other ways. For example, we have this great journal that we'll talk about, the Journal of the Association of Lunar and Planetary Observers that Celestron has been advertising in for many, many years.
Right.
And our attendance there allowed us to strengthen our relationship with Sky and Telescope. It
Absolutely.
allowed us to meet new vendors who could become partners in the future. And to that point, Overwork, one of the leading manufacturers of binoculars, has become an advertiser, and they are doing things with us that we can talk about a little bit later in the podcast. That is really very exciting for me, in particular.
Yeah, it was very rewarding for me to be there and just engage with the people. But
Mm-hmm.
like I said, 90% of the audience wasn't our audience. But we
Mm-hmm.
were very lucky to walk away with a new associate editor of the journal and someone to coordinate our youth program. So, that right there are two wins that I did not intend to walk into that conference and walk out with. So I'm very excited
Absolutely.
about those two gets that we got there too.
And that's the strength in messaging. I think what it allowed us to do also was get better prepared for NEAF, which came up in early April. NEAF was really our target. And
Hmm.
and it's almost unfortunate to say that in our 75-year existence, this is the first time we were at NEAF.
That's
We
exactly
should
right.
have been going for years. But you know what? As I've said in business many times, do something, do it wrong perhaps, but at least do something. So we went to AAS, not necessarily the best show for us to go to, but gave us the great nucleus of an idea of what we could do moving forward.
Yes, we
I'm
both
glad
we
we
both
went to
walked away with a lot
AAS
of lessons
first.
learned.
That's right. Absolutely. I'm glad we went to AAS
Hmm.
first and NEAF second because
Yeah.
that really allowed us to fine tune our messaging. And I think it's important to give you all the credit for this that we have evolved our messaging, all of our ads in Sky and Telescope since late 2024 have all been talking about becoming a better observer of the night sky. But we have evolved that messaging now and now our core target marketing messaging is moving from stargazing to science.
Hmm.
You know, when I worked in corporate marketing, I used to do brand studies and we would do brand discussions with executives and organizations. And I always used to use the example of Volvo and BMW and saying that for years and years and years, Volvo positioned themselves as being safe.
Hmm.
And they set a bar and they put themselves above the bar and they said, we make the safest cars. And everybody else was below the bar,
Right.
as we like to say in marketing. But then BMW came out with their new corporate ad campaign and they said, well, our cars are safe, but they're sexy too. So all of a sudden, in one fell swoop, BMW put Volvo below the bar because
Wow.
why drive a safe car when you can drive a safe car that's sexy?
Yeah, good point.
And I think talking about becoming a better observer of the night sky is truly what a lot of people want to do when they join the
Hmm.
ALPO. But in terms of our messaging and in terms of our core gestalt, so to speak, it is taking stargazing and turning it into science because people can realize and can learn that when they learn how to become better observers, they can become better observers and provide observing reports and images and studies to the ALPO that can then be used as part of our database and then for professional organizations who want to know what happened on Jupiter that night that
That's right.
maybe no one had an image of except us.
And we have the data. We have
That's right.
75 years worth of data to show
That's
those
very
things.
true.
You know,
That's very
and then
true.
jumping ahead, I attended NEAF with Jim Tomney and a few other members, and it was a whole different vibe because it was our core audience. Those were
Mm-hmm.
amateur astronomers. And I would
Mm-hmm.
say one third of the people that hit our booth had never even heard of us before.
Yeah.
Which,
Well, that's the old winking in the dark
yeah, because, well, part of
thing.
because,
So,
and the reason I was given is, well, you've never been here before. Because there was a
mm-hmm.
lot of locals in the New York area and the East
Mm-hmm.
Coast that go to NEAF, and they had never, who are you? But then I
That's right.
also ran into about 15 ALPO members, and they
Mm-hmm.
were very excited to see us there. I
Sure.
mean, that was just that gave them energy, and
Mm-hmm.
so and we picked up I don't know about 40 members, 30, 40
Mm-hmm.
members at during that event too. So that blew away anything we were looking for as well too,
Yeah.
as new membership. But
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
once again, we engaged with Sky Telescope and the larger companies, and they saw us there and they want us there. And
Mm-hmm.
we're invited back next year to NEAF. They want us to give presentations next year there. So I think we've got a little foothold in that conference now too in the future.
Well, and also you've had the opportunity, we've talked about this separately, you've had the opportunity to meet with executive directors of other nonprofits. And you know, we're all dealing with the same factors. There's
That's
so
right.
much going on online. What do we do to engage the end user? How do we get these people to want to become members? What tactile value can they get from a relationship with us? It's the same battle that others are facing. There's so much going on online. we still depend on members for our lifeblood.
Hmm. Yeah, when I first took on this position, I reached out
Mhm.
to Brian Kloppenberg, who's the ED of the AVSO. I reached out to the director of IOTA, the director of
Mhm.
American Meteor Society, and because we're all, like you said, we're all in the same boat. All of our members are our age. We got to bring
Yeah,
in younger people. How do we? And if one wins, we all win. We
yeah,
just got to figure out that magic sauce,
that's right.
whatever it is,
That's right.
to attract the
Hmm.
younger
Hmm.
members.
That's
So,
right. Well,
so
so in addition to messaging, I think it's important to call out the great work that Jim Tomney has done as our webmaster. You
absolutely.
know, it's been very hard. We know that, first of all credit to all of the section observers, the coordinators, the assistant coordinators, you, and all of the other people on the exec team. It's very important for everybody listening to this podcast to understand that these are all volunteer positions.
Hmm.
You people are we are all putting in our own private time to try and make this organization even more powerful than it has been. And I think one of the great steps forward we did was when Jim took the time, really over about a 3-year period,
Hmm.
to update our website. It's very difficult. On the one hand, you want to talk about the idea that you're very topical. And on the other, people go to one of the pages on your website and they see that the most current news article you have is from 2015.
That's right.
It really hurts. And I think Jim has done a great deal to update the website, to freshen us up, to make us look more current and more relevant, which is what people want, and to do a great job promoting our section coordinators. And I know that is another area that we want to talk about in terms of the great bench strength in the
Hmm.
organization that we have.
Yeah. Well, that reminds me. Yeah, when I was at AAS, Rick Feinberg, who used to be the editor-in-chief of Sky Telescope, he was surprised to see us there because he had never seen us there either.
Mhm.
And I have a
Mhm.
relationship with him. I knew him 25 years ago. And he
Mhm.
asked how the organization was. I said, good, we're still pretty active. He goes, I went on your webpage not too long ago and it was stagnant. And I said, well, look at it now. And he came back to me
Yeah,
later and he said, oh, okay, I see what you've done.
yeah.
You're bringing your because our website was stuck in the 1990s for feels like 50 years, but it was
Yeah.
very
No,
stagnant.
that's
But
true.
now what Jim has done is amazing, and there's still things we're putting a store in place and all sorts of other things that are
Mhm.
coming very soon to the website as well.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, and I think now may be a good time to segue to the idea of when you talk about bench strength, the level of expertise. So for everyone right now watching this and thinking, I have an interest in Mercury, I have an interest in the moon, I have an interest in Saturn, I love Jupiter. For them to understand that when you look at we can go down the line. Julius Benton, who was a previous executive director, has been our Saturn observing section coordinator for maybe going on 40 years
Yeah,
now.
I believe so.
I know he's been involved for a very long time. He's probably one of the top 3 or 4 observers in the world of Saturn.
Yep.
When you look at people interested in the moon, we have 2 great people on staff. Robert Garfinkel, who for all of you
Mhm.
out there who are lugging around your great 3 edition set of Luna Cognita, that 3 volume set was put together by Robert Garfinkel. And for all the people who come to the website, you should all know that in addition to the journal, we put together a monthly edition of what we call the Lunar Observer. And this is where we give credit to Dave Teskey,
Yep.
who is the editor and publisher of that piece. Every month, David puts together between 140 and 200 pages of lunar observations and studies, talking about mounds, talking about merit, talking about craters, and compiling it in a way that it's not only archived, but it's searchable as well. And these are materials that we make widely available, not only to our members, but using the Cloudy Nights online
Yes.
forum. Every month, you can go to the lunar pages and you can see the monthly lunar observer that we publish.
Yeah,
So that's a great benefit that we put out.
David releases that for free as a PDF file to anybody that sends him an email. And
Sure,
it's a
that's right.
marvelous, publication. He does
Mhm.
it's not sponsored by the ALPO. We don't give him any money for it. He does
Yeah,
this on his own, and it's fabulous what he does. It
it
really
is.
is.
It is remarkable.
And
Then you
along,
look at people like Richard Schmoody, who is the author of Uranus, Neptune, and Pluto and How to Observe Them. Carl, Carl, our most recent
Hergenrother,
executive
yes.
director, Carl Hergenrother, not only a world famous astronomer with something like 35 minor planets to his name, he's got two comets named after
Mhm.
him. He is the section coordinator of our comet section. He publishes reams of data on a monthly basis on the Cloudy Nights website.
Comet News.
And Comet News, absolutely. And I'm very pleased to say, we can announce it here, Carl is working with Oberwerk Binoculars
Mhm.
to do a field study of two of their binocular telescopes. So he's going to have a shootout between two of their best binoculars, and we're going to be able to allow ALPO members to see that first and then
Yeah.
publish that online.
Yeah.
I'm very excited about that.
One of the advantages I had at Neve was I met the owner of Overworks, and I thanked him very much for that opportunity. And they're looking forward to see what Carl comes back with because they highly respect Carl as well. So
That's
it's
great.
this is a we're in a very good time right now.
Mm-hmm.
So what do you
Mm-hmm.
think makes the ALPO community unique if someone joins?
I think really what makes us unique is the idea that they're doing more with what they have available to them. I think what makes us unique is the fact that if you really care about doing both things that we talk about in a marketing message, moving from becoming a better observer of the night sky to taking your stargazing and turning it to science, we have one of the things that very few organizations have, and that is we have an observer training program. You get full credit for this as well.
Well,
This is a very deep dive. It is such a deep dive that I signed up for it several months ago and have not even been able to get started. And that's my fault. But there is a lot to it because it's more than just look up at the different phases of the moon, but it's
right.
understanding how to illustrate, it's understanding how to draw, it's understanding how to understand distances and shades of darknesses when you're looking at something like the moon, which then helps you with observing Jupiter, observing Saturn. And it is, I believe, a level of skill that people can aspire to as a member of the organization that you may get on in a happenstance manner if you're a member of an astronomy club and you kind of hang on to the coattails of somebody who's doing a little bit more. But with the ALPO, you get to work with people who are recognized world leaders in very, very specific fields of
Right.
observational astronomy, which I think is very, very unique.
That's very true. Yeah. And a lot of our contributors are not even members. 70% of the people that download this podcast are not subscribers, which please hit that subscribe button right now. I'd really appreciate
That's all right. They're all
it.
out there. We're calling you all out on
Yeah.
it.
But just a minor plug. Right now, as we record this, we're at 960 subscribers. I want 40 more. It's
There
nothing.
you go.
So 40 people out there that are watching this right now, just hit that button. It helps us out. That jumps us to a whole different level on YouTube as well. So it brings even more people to the organization. So
All right.
that's my commercial. But how do
All
we
right. You've all been given your assignment.
but how do we attract the non-members
I think
to the
I
organization?
think the way that we attract them is what we've been doing. We have an ad that we run in Sky and Telescope every month. We do digital advertising with their email blasts, which means every week that we have an ad in their email blast, we're reaching 65,000 more people. We're reaching about 150,000, I believe, with the ad in Sky and Telescope. And we will continue to do that. We continue to update the ads. So we've gone from little black and white ads to now we're doing full color ads. There's a call to action. We do want people to sign up. One of the things that we didn't talk about, but we should, is that when we go to these trade shows, we offer a discount
Hmm.
for memberships so that when people are walking the floor and you have a reason to join right there during the show, they can get a discount on their annual membership. We have two levels of membership too, which I think is important. You can get a digital only membership, or you can get a membership with the print journal. And I will say that after 75 years and looking it up, I will tell you that ALPO has one of the longest living scientific journals published to date.
That's
You know, we can talk about Scientific American and we can talk about some medical journals and whatnot. But when you talk about purely scientific astronomy journals, the JALPO really stands almost alone in this field.
mhm. That's very true. And one of the events that we have coming up in July is our annual conference. It's once again going to
Hmm.
be a virtual conference. It's going to be held on YouTube and on Zoom. It's simulcast on
Hmm.
YouTube, but the main event is on Zoom. It's going to be held July 10th and 11th, Friday and Saturday. And I will post the times on here so you'll see everything, the times and how to contact everybody. That'll be in the show notes. But we have right now, we about half of our speaking spots are already taken. We haven't even formally announced the conference yet.
That's
So
correct.
if you want to give it, if you want to give a presentation, number one, you need to be a member of the ALPO. That's the
Hmm.
first thing. Then, but you do not need to be a member to attend the conference either on Zoom or on the YouTube channel. And they're going to be
Hmm.
simulcast same time, so you won't miss a thing, and they'll be available to watch later as well. So I will have my email address come down here and just drop me an email if you'd like to give a presentation and you're a member. And if you want to join and give a presentation, let us know.
Yeah, there are two more ways when you talk about getting outreach. One of them is when you talk about the annual meeting is what we will do in advance of that is we will issue a press release.
Hmm.
So that way we get out to the science organizations on Business Wire. And the other thing that I've started doing is every time I see an article in the local paper or in the New York Times, is reaching out to those people and letting them know that if they're looking for a source of scientific expertise, the next time they want to run an article, they should feel free to contact us.
Yes, we
And that
should
is
be, we
another
should.
way because we are now reaching out to the people that are publishing the articles that are of interest to not only our
Oh,
members, but the general public as well, which is critical.
I've had some very spectacular guests on this podcast before, and
Mhm.
today I reached out to quite a few more, and the ones I've gotten positive feedback on, I'm very excited to bring on the podcast.
That's
So,
great.
so we're
When you
we're gonna.
talk about visibility, you know, even though we say that we didn't do so well at AAS, the truth is we did very well because we not only reconnected with Sky and Telescope,
Yep.
but we were mentioned in two online editions of the January issue. They keep it fresh and updated.
Yep.
The ALPA was mentioned twice, one about an occultation of Jupiter
Yep.
and another about the moon. And getting general mentions in Sky and Telescope is very important to us because, as you say, a lot of people don't know who we are. So all of a
Yep.
sudden, we're getting recognition by a very established source that people are reading. And what we want to do is get some of that spillover to join
That's
the
true.
ALPA as well.
So for our future as marketing, what do you
Mhm.
see? What do you envision us doing?
I see us, you know, we have to be and we should be very cautious and careful and efficient with our spending. Um, I really see us doing more of the same in a positive way. I see us expanding our Sky and Telescope advertising. We talk about the main show, NEAF, but one of the things that I know we're going to be doing, and I'm excited about that as well, is getting into more popular regional shows. There's an expression in marketing that we call trade show in a box. One of the things that we've been doing is putting together materials
Hmm.
and we will put them on the website so people can see them. I don't know that we've really promoted what we've done at NEAF. We have seen what some other people did,
Right.
but we really took the stargazing to science messaging and applied it really throughout the booth, throughout our collateral, throughout all of our messaging
Yep.
information. And we're going to not only be able to continue doing that, but we will be able to take ALPO members who are in different parts of the country who
Hmm.
have major events that they can go to. For example, I'm going to be looking at going to the Golden State Star Party,
Oh,
which is coming up later this year. And I
great.
will have available to me what we call a trade show in a booth, which is either a 10 by 10 or a banner that can
Hmm.
be put up onto a table and expand our presence through these local shows. You talk about a targeted audience. There's no more targeted audience than the two or three or 400 people who are going to a 4-day event and taking the time to invest to bring themselves and their families to a place under dark skies,
Yep.
to get together with friends who they only see once a year at these types of events.
Yeah.
And for us to now have a presence there, just as we maybe should have been for many years at NEAF, but at least now we're there.
Yes.
That's good. At least we started, and that's important. Like I say, I think we're going through a renaissance phase. We will continue working with Sky and Tel. We'll continue analyzing our ads, making sure that they're as effective as possible, and continuing our outreach to other regional shows, I think is critical for us without us having to spend a lot of money, which we have to be, of course, always very careful with.
Yeah, I will be this year in November, I believe, in Borrego Springs for Nightfall. So
Mm.
that's sponsored by the Riverside Astronomical Society. So
Mhm.
I'll be at that. And in the future, we're definitely going to be at the Winter Star Party and the Texas Star Party. Texas Star Party, I
Mhm.
think, is starting next week or something like that. But that's
Mhm.
next year. We will definitely have because we have members in those areas of the country. So that conference in a box, we can definitely send to them and have them man a booth for a couple hours a day. Just let everybody know, because that to me was a surprising thing in NEAF. Third of the people
Mhm.
didn't even know who we were.
Mhm.
You know,
Mhm.
now they do.
Well, I think we'll see that change over time. I would expect that to happen, and I would feel very good knowing that people can not only come up to us and know who we are, but know where they've seen us in the past, which is
Yeah.
great.
So, in your view, what does success look like in the next year or two?
Oh, for me, success is hitting the 1,000. You want to have 1,000 subscribers to your podcast. For me, success in the next year or two would be for us to get to 1,000 members.
I agree. I
That would
agree.
be critical. It's not that it's any specific milestone, but it's critical because what that also tells us is that we're doing the right thing in
Hmm.
terms of messaging. We have a great opportunity. One of the things that we could talk about is our youth program.
Hmm.
You know, with astronomy organizations, I have a terrible joke, which is a youth program is anybody under 60.
I agree.
So,
That's what we've been.
yes, and we're all there. So I think that we I think that we have a great opportunity with youth programs,
Hmm.
everything from working with local middle schools and high schools and getting to the college level. The issue, of course, with these things are once you do one, you can do one and it's okay, but to do one and then replicate it a
Right.
thousand times can be very, very
Right.
expensive. So for me, success is not necessarily doing all of it at once, but it's setting the groundwork and understanding the implications of saying, okay, if we put together a youth program, what does that mean? Because I've actually heard people say, well, as ALPO, we don't really have materials for middle schoolers. We could develop that,
Yes, we are.
but it gets into another old marketing adage I've had, which is what I call chasing the good idea.
Hmm.
And that is you can do this because it's a good idea, and you can do that because it's a good idea. And at the end of the year, you've done all these great ideas, but you haven't necessarily moved your business forward.
Right.
So we recognize that there are a lot of great ideas. I think personally, the idea of a youth program and understanding how we can implement something like that without killing our resources or our
Hmm.
energy is very, very important. And that's where, as I've said, all of this great work that's being done by the ALPO executive staff is all being done on a volunteer basis. I think if we can get some people who already are working with kids, just as you said,
Hmm.
you picked up a new
Ariana. Yeah.
assistant editorial director and
Yeah.
someone to work with the youth program,
Yeah.
people who already have a foothold into these markets in astronomy, we would welcome them to come on board and help us. And that would be their legacy, helping
Yeah.
us establish a youth program where we could pick up literally thousands of members, which would include, of course, understanding what does a membership mean?
Yeah.
What does an annual membership fee mean to somebody who's 12 or 14 years old versus someone who's 40 years old and has been observing for many years. So these are things we need to consider and take into consideration because we can come up with many great ideas, but it's important to understand if we implement them and do them well, how will they help us move the business forward? So when you talk about goals for me, my goal is very selfish, but it's membership. I think that the ALPO has a lot to offer. I think we have been offering a lot for many, many years. and I'm excited about the opportunities that are in front of us.
Yeah, and I look forward to Ariana as a person's name that's doing the youth thing. And when I met her in Arizona, she was the only student there that had a presentation on STEM and outreach and youth education. So I immediately gravitated to her. And actually, she came up to our booth. I think you remember that you were there. And she was talking
Yes.
to us, what do we need? And she
Hmm.
immediately agreed for the job. I told her, it doesn't pay anything. She goes, no, I want to do this. I want to help you guys. So, and I've tasked her to come with a short presentation at the conference in July to talk about
That's great.
what her plans are and just hopefully get some more people excited about that section because that's something we've never really had in the history of the ALPO. So I really want to get that going because that's our future.
That's great. That's great. I'm excited. It's a great time to be on the executive staff. It's a great time to be a member of the endowment board of trustees.
Yes.
And it's a great time to be a member because I think we're going to see so many things changing that have never happened before and really moving forward and moving the organization forward. It's a very exciting time. And I'm really looking forward to, under your leadership, what we'll do moving into the 2027, the end of this year and on into 2027.
Yeah. Well, I can't do it alone, but I'm lucky to have the support of the board and people like you around me to help
Thank you.
push these things through. So
Thank
call to
you.
action to everybody watching. Join the ALPO. Membership begins at only $22 a year. If you want that paper journal, it's $55 a year, which is still cheaper than any other
Mhm,
major astronomy organization, which I won't name, but
mhm, mhm.
get involved with the section. If you like observing Jupiter or Mars, reach out to the section coordinators. We're always looking for new help in all of those areas. You know, all of our section coordinators are getting old. They all want
Yeah.
a little bit of a break. You don't need to take on the whole job. Just if you want to do, you know, some archiving or
Mhm.
correspondence with other observers, reach out to them. And
Yes,
of course, follow the podcast and subscribe.
absolutely.
That's very
If
important.
you want to be a better observer of the night sky and turn your stargazing to
And
science,
that's it.
join us.
That's it. Well, Ron, you got anything else you'd like to share with us before we?
No, I think it's been great.
All right.
I think it's been terrific.
Okay.
I'm thrilled that you gave me this opportunity to talk a little bit about what we're doing moving forward. And people should tune in and see how we're doing by this time next year.
That'll be exciting. I'm looking forward to that. Well, Ron, thanks
Me
for coming on
too.
the podcast today.
Thank you so much.
All right.
Take care, Tim.
All right. Well, that's going to wrap it up for this episode of the Observer's Notebook podcast. I really want to thank our marketing director, Ron May, for coming on today and give us some good insight to where the ALPO is going. I hope you enjoyed it, and I hope you're motivated to join us with it. If you enjoyed the episode, please take a moment and give us a thumbs up and subscribe and share the podcast. That's important as well. It really helps us reach more listeners. New episodes of the Observer's Notebook are released on the 1st and 15th of every month. You can find us on iTunes, Spotify, and the ALPO YouTube channel. And if you'd like to help support the podcast, you can do so through Patreon for as little as a few dollars a month, up to $35 a month, where you'll receive exclusive benefits, including a one-year membership to the ALPO and producer credits right here on the show. You'll find the Patreon link and the ALPO website in the show notes. And a special thank you, as always, to our producers, Steve Seidentup and Michael Moyer, for their continued support of the Observer's Notebook. And if you'd like to reach me, you can email me anytime at tim.robertson@alpo-astronomy.org. Thanks for following.